keeps asking me to sign in, and I've signed in.
It's like, can you please sign in?
There we go.
Yay.
Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up? Welcome to episode 35 of Josh Says Mean Things. I'm actually wearing an OG Says Mean Things shirt. It didn't turn out well. I don't really like it, but I figured it was appropriate for today. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about Lightroom and how it's changed in the last week. Audio. Dang it. Why does it do this to me? I'm not having this kind of day. Oh, you hear me. Oh, gosh, Jim, you made me go crazy. Great. There actually is audio. Okay. All right. Jim just likes giving me heart attacks. No big deal. It's fine. It's my number one mistake. YouTube has asked me to sign in like 3 times trying to go live. So that's fun. And then it wouldn't connect. And yay for YouTube. Thank you. So yeah, we're going to be talking about Lightroom 13 Classic. We'll be talking about Lightroom 7 for Cloud. There's actually a really big change there. And then I'll let you know some other changes for Lightroom Mobile as well. The big change for Lightroom Mobile is that they just kind of changed the user interface a little bit. That's a big update there. Nothing too crazy. Says Mean Things. Yes, that's what I do. And Bill, actually, I'm glad you commented because we're actually starting with your photo first. So yeah, let's just get to it. Let's see if I can make all this stuff work. There we go. Lightroom full. Let's go full, and bring that down. Hotkeys, Shift plus F. We'll go full screen 1. Shift plus F again. We'll go full screen 2. And I think that gives you the most screen real estate when you're editing. Shift F again. I'll get it back to normal. And then we can use that little down arrow there to get rid of the film strip so I can hide all my surprises for y'all. So this was an image that Bill sent from not in Texas. I think this is from the Grand Tetons, one of the lovely barns up there. Bill, if you're in the comments, you can go ahead and throw the name of this barn. But, nice, lovely 3-stop, not 3-stop, but 3-image HDR. So again, if we're in Lightroom, here you can see these 3 raw files, 1, 2, 3. If you want to merge those to an HDR, right click, photo merge, HDR, and that'll build a new raw file. Actually, it's a TIFF file, but who's counting? But it creates a new file that blends all of those exposures together to give you more dynamic range when we're editing. So this is the file that Bill edited, and we can kind of see what he did here. So let's talk about the critique part. I kind of like the weight of the image. I think that's kind of my soccer analogy, right? The weighted pass, where the ball lands on somebody's feet right at the right moment, or like a football quarterback that throws a pass that hits the receivers right in the right hand, right? The pass had the right weight to it. And so I think the weight here is good. We have a balance with the barn, the trees. We have a good foreground. We have a background, right? We have a depth to it. The snow is looking snowy. So that's, those are all good things. For me, the camera profile didn't come through because I didn't have it loaded on my camera. So I'm guessing this was not edited in Adobe Color, if I had to guess. So for me, again, profile is always the place that I like to start. But, good texture and all the wood, skies nice and soft and wispy. Shot at f11, good depth of field. And so for me, I thought this photo would be a fun one to show a couple things. One being, and my original edit disappeared somewhere. I don't actually know where it went. I can't find my original virtual copy, but I'm going to show you my edit. I think this one's very nice. It's a very lovely image. I bet it was very cold. I don't do so well in the cold. I don't do well in the elevation. It's why I live at 400 feet elevation in Texas. So props for getting out and shooting some bad weather, making good photos. From South Austin. What's up, John? Giraffe Godzilla. Okay, that's a new one. All right. What's up, guys? So yeah, let me show you what I did. So I took that raw file. Now it's kind of went a different direction. There was no sense in editing in the same direction that y'all went. And so let's take a look and kind of see once this loads. So a couple things. The original was shot at f11, and so in my brain I was like, well, wouldn't it be fun to use the new blur tool to make it feel like it was not shot at f11 and maybe like it was shot at f2 and kind of gave it, I don't know, a weird feel to it. So let's take a look at some of the things that we did. First of all, camera profile. I started with camera flat. Camera flat generally gives you the biggest dynamic range to work with, right? Camera landscape is the most punchy, most contrasty. And so starting with camera flat just gives me a nice, soft, kind of flat image to start with. So started there, cranked up the vibrance. I actually brought down clarity. That's kind of been something I've been doing a lot lately. I've been using texture more, clarity less. And then for my white and black points, if you notice, there's just a little bit of white there. I might fix that little bitty bit in that corner. There's no black. So my blacks are down at 15. My whites are up to 31. And then I boosted my highlights just a touch. And I brought down my shadows just a little bit. While I'm in this tone curve, something else that changed, you can actually refine saturation. I noticed that a lot of times when I do like an S curve, some of my reds especially get kind of oversaturated. And so this is a way when you're adding contrast to the photo to keep that from happening to your photo. So I didn't use it here because it never went overboard. But this is a nice way to take out some of that oversaturation that can happen when you're going really hardcore with line curves. Yeah, it kind of does look like a miniature, especially on the thumbnail that y'all see. Let me show you how to get to it because it took me a little bit to get to. So it's actually a beta. We don't need to do color reaction. So it's down here under lens blur, and it is an early access feature. It's not very fast. It does not feel optimized, but it is kind of fun to play with. So I did blur amount 30. As you change that, it kind of changes the f-stop, right? Blur amount, the more you blur, the shallower depth of field you're going to get. And you can refine the focal length here. You can change that to make it match whatever you want to do. This feels off because it's faked. So, it should feel off. But what happens, you can go and use this little target tool right here and you tell Lightroom what's in focus. So you can draw a square. So if I can click that and I would say, hey, this area is in focus. And so then based on that depth map, it creates the blur. And then we can add or subtract blur from it, right? We can make it go away a lot and go really crazy. We don't want to do that, though. It starts getting really, really wild. So for me, a little bit, most things goes a long way. You can see, whoa, it goes way too far. Probably too much. You can also change the shape of the bokeh. I've never known if I'm saying that right, if it's bokeh or bokeh or whatever. But you can certainly change that as well. So, it's just something fun to do, right? You shot this at f11 for a landscape, just something fun to play with. But I want to show you where that's at. You can also change the depth here. And if you have a depth map already associated with the file, it will use that. So if you've done something like focus stacking or something along those lines, you can bring that in and I'll read that. The Molten Barn Grand Tetons National Park. Yeah, so it's something fun to play with. I thought this would just be a good example. I do think this is going to be something that gets overused for the next month or so. You can also, it's going to get overused. That's probably the best way to say that. So anyway, I just thought it'd be something fun to share. Some other things that I did to this image, masking. So created a big sky mask. You can see this one. Where we created a mask down from the sky. We made that much darker, killed the highlights. And then the other one we did was kind of the opposite of that. Just adding some texture through the center here, right? So in the global, I And I took some of that away, and then in the center part where I actually wanted it, I'll apply it. So my thought process lately has been globally reduce clarity and texture, and then put it as more of a medium or even a small zone that I want to use to really make just those things textury or sharpened, to use it much more in a selective means instead of making the whole image, because there's no reason to make my clouds more texture. There's no more reason to make the snow more textury, but the barn, the trees, right, the wood post. The other thing cropping that I did here, we kind of had one vertical post, two vertical posts. And so with cropping, the original Bill had taken this one out. I don't know if I like it better, but I kind of like that it adds a little bit of a balance to it. Let me show you what the original was. So I kind of took out this outside edge, which I think is good. There's some little bit of trees over there. But I think leaving that in gives me a 1, 2, 3 rule of odds. And I think it also then ties this fence better into the fence behind it. It kind of creates an S curve from this way to here and then comes back around to this tree line. So it just gives me more of a loop around the barn. And I think if we take it out, right, if we were to come here and take it out just a little bit, then we lose that coming through and tying into this fence behind. So, I could see it going either way, but for me, I just liked it a little bit stronger with that. So, yeah. The other thing that we did, we played with the old HSL panels. And so I darkened by using luminance. I darkened the blues, and then I brought up the reds in the wood of the barn. Okay. So just by using the luminance here, I brought those up just to give tonality differences. So I wanted my reds, oranges, yellows brighter, my blues, aquas, purples darker. And so that kind of helps offset the barn against the sky as well. So just some things to think about. I want you to think less globally and to start thinking more in zones, right? Start thinking about what specifically do you want to make more texture? What colors do you specifically want to brighten or darken? And we're going to talk more about that with this new point color mixer here in just a couple photos. All right. Next photo is a great panning shot from Chris. I really love this, right? This vintage racer. It's really cool. You got the old spokes in the wheel. That's really fun. So I really like that. I like the trees just blurring by. So I think that's really fun. I think the action is anchored well to the lower right because the car is moving left. Right, so we have a little bit more space in this area to our left over here for the car to move through, right? So it really feels fast, even though it was shot at 1/60th of a second. So again, if you want to make something look fast, shoot slow, shutter speed, right? So I think that's really fun. To me, though, with a vintage, I took this in another direction, right? So with a vintage car, I wanted the edit to feel a little bit more vintagey. I don't know if that's a word, but we're going to use it. So I just took it in a little bit softer, a little bit less punchy direction to make it feel maybe more like the time that it was shot in. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so a little bit more muted, a little bit more saturated. The other thing that I did to give this photo a little bit more dynamism is I used the strongest tool, which is a crop tool. So instead of keeping it as kind of a flat road, I made it look like it was almost climbing up, right? So just rotated that, 3 degrees up. So it gives it more of a triangular nature, right? We want triangles in our photos, right? 1s, 3s, 5s, triangles are 3s. That's what we're going for there. So the big part of that was the crop tool. It's always, in every photo editing service, the crop is still the most powerful. So let's take a look at some other things that we did. We brought down the highlights, we boosted the shadows. I did +5 vibrance, but then -10 saturation. And that's just a nice soft way for me to bring down my colors without making it look too much like sepia toned or anything like that. That's just kind of a way I do it a lot, is like I'll double negative my vibrance. So if I go up 10 in vibrance, I'll go -20 in saturation. So it's just something to think about as a way to desaturate it, but still have a little bit of color in there. But yeah, I really like this shot. So let's take a look at some other things we did, and I'm going to show you the color mixer. So I created a vignette around this car. So this one has negative 0.6 exposure. I darken the highlights, darken the whites. All these whites up here in the original, I wanted to take down, right? See how bright it is without it? I wanted to take that down, okay? And then the trees again, let's show you what this one does. I just darkened that from top to bottom just to bring your eye down to the brightest part of the race car, which is that, that 776, the helmet, and the other 776. And then I added some clarity just to the wheels, just to kind of add into there. And then I did a little bit of clarity and shadow boosting the engine because it's got this cool engine. So I want to boost that and kind of show some of that detail in there because I think that got lost because you're on the shadow side, right? So just boosting that just a little bit. And then I want to darken up the road on one side, just again to bring your eyes, to keep your eyes on the focus, which is the car, right? So that's what all my radial masking was for here, but just something to look at. Now, the other thing that we want to look at is this new point color. I'm still learning it. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to utilize this to the best of my workflow. But essentially what you can do is you select a color. In this case, I picked this green right behind here. And I darkened it, right? So for this one, I could make that brighter. I can make it darker, right? So I just want to make it a little bit darker. And then this brown area right here that I thought was a little distracting, I darkened my browns. I desaturated it to get rid of some of the brownness, right? So if I oversaturate, you can kind of see where it comes in. But I desaturated those browns. And then I shifted them from brown more to a green color. So we started there. Okay, you can see this little control area right here. I started it kind of in the brown red, and I moved that to a green just in this area to blend in more with the trees because I didn't want that big brown to be there to kind of distract from all of the green because I wanted that monochromatic color. So I wanted to keep that green color going as much as possible. And so I brought that over to the greens, okay? And that allowed me to kind of blend that in a little bit. So just something that I'm starting to work with. You can expand and soften the range just like you would with the other brushes. This also works inside of the masking tools. I'll show you some more examples in a little bit, but just as a way to kind of start and why you might use that to target specific colors. And again, these work. You can work this inside of a selection tool. So I might be able to select just an area to work on just those browns instead of the old mixer, which it's a global adjustment only. Triangles, yeah, always triangles. But anyway, I really love this panning shot. That's really fun. So good shot. I meant to work on this a little bit more, but it's a hard one. We're gonna skip that and come back to it later because I don't know. I couldn't get this one right. So okay. So this is a photo from a class that we taught a couple weeks ago. And this is from Jess. I really like this black and white conversion. I really love the negative space on this. It's just a really lovely capture. And I never thought to convert mine to black and white. I was using gels to light this. And one of the interesting things about shooting gels is if you know you're going to convert it to black and white, you can actually use your gels as selection tools. I'll say that again. If you know you're going to convert something to black and white, you can use your gelled areas as in-camera selection tools because then you can work on specific color ranges and adjust them. Instead of just tonality, you can use them to adjust specific areas. So just something to think about. I know that may be a little confusing. And just the balance of this photo I really love. So yeah, it's cool. Yeah, good shot. I wish I would have thought to convert mine to black and white because I think it really works for this. So I'm not going to edit mine in the same way. I wouldn't change anything about this photo. It's really good. So don't change it. It's lovely. So what did I do? I went a little different. Again, I try to keep that softness and that feel, but you can kind of see where I had some different color gels going on this. This was kind of a white wall, but we gelled it a color. Let me show you the before and after raw file just to get an idea. So the Y key on the keyboard, hit Y, and it'll go back to show you the original. So we had a red gel or like a pink, and that was kind of illuminating part of it. You see this like kind of nasty wall plug, and there's a little bit of a beauty dish down here. So we had to get rid of all that stuff. But Something else to remember, and I did it on this one, is that you can actually use the subject and a linear. So when I hit subject on here, the entire the ropes, the silks, and the body got selected. And so by doing a linear gradient, we actually I use that to subtract down to keep it darker, because I brightened her up, but I wanted to have the silks be a negative gradient so that they were darker than her. So inside this mask is actually a subtractive linear gradient to combine to where she's bright, and the ropes there, the silks, are getting negative values as well. So it's just something we're subtracting out of the subject mask. So that's the way to think of it. We selected the subject, and then we're using the linear gradient to deselect part of that selection. But that's a way. I didn't want the whole background to be negative, just the silks that got selected. And then for the background, I changed it more blue, right? So my control there, I could change that kind of any color I wanted by white balance. But I wanted it blue, so I went -25 because I thought the blue background softness with kind of the yellow gold of her hair would work pretty well. Yeah. So again here, we're using that point color. This shoe, this leotard here, was very orange, and I didn't like that. So I wanted to make changes to it, so I shifted out of the full red. So it started off here, which was a little too much for me. And so I could bring it both down and over. So as we bring it up or down, it changes our saturation. And as we move it left or right, we can shift that color. So left and right is hue, up and down is saturation. And then the secondary selector over here is brightness, right? Luminance is brightness of that color. And so we were able to make it brighter or darker as we went. So yeah, I've really been enjoying this point color. I'm still not 100% comfortable with it, but I do want to explain kind of what's going on. The other thing that we did here is color grade. Then on top of that, so after we did the point color grading, added warmth to the midtones, coolness to my shadows, which is essentially this wall, and then greens to the highlights to kind of counteract some of the magenta that we had in our gels. So this is opposite the light that I gelled. So yeah, kind of using this in combination with that. So using color grading as well as point color as well as gels to kind of end up in a final, more softer image than maybe I would have seen originally. Yeah. But yeah, I'm really digging this. I think I also, to make then and then I wanted the wall to go more out of focus. And so I then used the blur tool. So this is what the wall looked like after I did all of my color shifting and texture and all that. And so I wanted it to go away. So I just used the blur tool and blurred it out completely out of focus as a way to soften up that background. I could certainly see a use case for this if you're doing headshots in small locations and your paper maybe has some crinkles in it. This could be a very easy way to deal with those crinkles. Just change the blur and let it go. That used to be something you would have to take into Photoshop and really de-blur that way, or add blur, Gaussian or whatever. But I think this is kind of a faster way to do it all inside Lightroom now, is to add a blur to the background, and you could solve for some of those crinkly papers or otherwise anything that's kind of distracting element. It also means, hey, you just shoot everything at f8, and if you want to blur it later, you can blur it later. I do know that it feels very GPU heavy. So I noticed that when I use the blur tool, it really kind of bogs down my computer somewhat. So I wouldn't want to use it on a big set of images. I think here and there, I think it's useful, but I don't know that I would want to use it all the time as a way to get around not having a 2.8 or f2 or 1.8 or whatever lens. But I could certainly see some use cases for it. You want me to link to point color overview? Sure. It is Lightroom 13. Let's see, can I put links? I don't know. Let's see, can we put links there? There you go. And so again, this is for the desktop version 13. Obviously, the big change for Lightroom 7 for your laptop or desktop is that you can edit locally now. You don't have to upload to the cloud. And so that's a huge thing. I really feel like Lightroom's really trying to prepare the cloud version to be the only version of Lightroom. I don't think it's there yet, but I definitely feel like that's the way they're going. We'll see. We'll see what happens, but it certainly feels like that in some ways. Oh, you put a link, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm still playing with it. I would suggest continue to play. We'll talk more about it in our upcoming episodes, but I just think it's going to be especially for people who are color obsessed like me. I just think that's a great way to get there. Now, let me show you an example of why I really love this new point color. I have, for whatever reason, my Canons, this neon blue and kind of red. When I use the profile that I generated with my color checker, I'm going to shift and show you when I go from Adobe Color to the one that I created, these blues just go nuts. So this blue and pink just go overboard here. And I never really had a good way to solve for that. And point color allows me to solve for that, where I can actually use the color profiles that I want, the camera profiles that I want, without overcooking everything. Because right now, these blues, as you see, I mean, it's overdone. It's especially happens when I'm shooting corporate events or wedding receptions and they're using blue uplighting. For whatever reason, the Canons just lose their minds with that color. And I never really had a good way to deal with it. I would have to use like Camera Standard or Adobe Standard, just a way to mute those colors, because anytime I used my built-in profile, those colors just exploded into a range that I couldn't deal with. So let me show you kind of the effect. I'm able to control those much better using point color. So I actually have 3 different selections here, but it allows me, the big part is I can desaturate them a little bit and bring down their luminance in a way that's useful to me. So I did it for blue, for pink, and for magenta as a way to bring down those colors so that you could see them. You can see negative luminance there, and then again on the pink, that's her skin tone. I raised that to brighten that up. But I still did a little bit of a shift to get it out of that blue into more of a pink as a way to separate her skin tone off the backgrounds. The other thing, those light tubes, there is like 7 radials all on this, and it's -1 exposure, -100 highlights as a way to, those light ones otherwise were just pure white almost. And so it's a way to bring color back into those so that you can see what they're giving off. So it's just a whole bunch of radials all around those light tubes. I love radial filters. They're my favorite. But that's kind of the big part that we did there. Then we did some other radials to kind of bring up areas of her skin and clothing, because otherwise they were getting that overboardness. Again, -5 clarity. I just think it makes images a little bit nicer these days. I also had a black mist filter on, so I was already losing some of that texture. And so that was a nice way. Now I shot this at f2. I'm not using the blur tool here. And I didn't mess with the denoise here. I will say the new denoise tool is really nice. It still only works on camera raw files, though. It doesn't work for TIFFs. It doesn't work for JPEGs yet. It's coming, but it's not there yet. So, yeah. But just want to kind of show you one of my use cases. I'm a lot able to blend in these colors in a way that I wasn't able to before. And this is just an example I had on hand. But, man, I've shot so many corporate events where there's blue uplighting and my files are just destroyed. So this is a nice way to be able to get that back. Yeah. Cool. Oh, where's my edit of this? Well, we're going to do a live edit because I don't know where mine went. Okay, this is Burkich's JPEG shot at f16 and 1/25 to get that nice rotor going there. Let's just do a live edit because I don't know where mine went. All my virtual copies, I'm not sure where they are. Oh well, we'll figure it out. Let's do it. Oh, and some other ones went away. Did I? Stacking. Expand all stacks. Nope. Okay. Your edit flew away. Yes. Very good. Very good. I don't know where they went. So this is shot in JPEG. Okay. So there's no camera profiles because we're already in JPEG, right? So a couple things here. One, the first thing I see, we could do something like select subject, so that I could work on just the plane. So for something like this, I want that plane a little bit brighter, right? I want the plane to have more texture, right? Because I don't need the sky to have texture. The sky is just a color, right? So we're going to add a little bit of texture, add a little bit of clarity, and really make that plane feel like it's popping. I might boost the shadows just a little bit, especially on that underside, just to make that sky pop. Now, if you notice, it picked up some of this rotor, but I don't want it to, so I'm going to subtract brush as a way to deal with that blur there that I don't really want it to deal with. So I'm going to take out those the shutters from it, the props. And then we're going to duplicate and invert mask. And so that'll give me everything but the plane. And so if I wanted to here, right, I could do things like make my sky bluer. I can make my sky warmer, right? I could do whatever I wanted to there. I could also, let's see, I could also change my tone curve, which I don't really want to do. And then right here, point color. So I'm going to select this color there, and it allows me to bring up or down or shift hue, right? I can make that sky. In this case, I kind of like that teal. I think the teal is better. And so we're going to just make that sky teal because I think it goes well with this red and kind of griminess there. Expand the range. So it's kind of picking up everything here. It's just something I'm going to do, just a way to shift out of this purple into more of a teal. So yeah, and that was done inside this masking tool. So it's not changing any of the blues of the plane, right? So I selected just the sky, then the color mixer, the point color inside that selection to make a change. And then overall, I'd probably do a radial. I love my radials, a great way to focus your vision, right? So select that, invert it, and then I'm going to make the area around the plane a little bit darker. Kind of minus 0.2, minus 20 highlights is kind of my go-to. Yeah. And then, right, so now we see before and after. Just a way to kind of make that pop, right? And I didn't really do anything with vibrance yet. I could. All right, we can make it vibrance. But if you notice, I didn't change anything globally here with presence. It was all done inside the selection tools. So again, we're thinking more medium zone and fine zone, not global. Right? I think that's a good goal to get to. Okay. So that was a fun one. Now, this is a really cool plane. Somebody just went to an air show. You got this cool afterburn right there. Look at that. That's really awesome. And this warm sky. I like the framing of it. I like that there's going here. But again, what I would do, my first thing would be to change this crop. I want that afterburner to be taking me off a little bit. So I'm just going to rotate it and give it more of that dynamic angle going up. Right? You might even do a little bit more of it if you wanted to. Right, to make it feel like it's lifting off of those afterburners. So that was kind of the first thing that I changed. I just think it makes it a little more dynamic. I'm going to crank that vibrance. Let's make it warmer. Not that warm. This is always the fun part of working with. So let's do another point color. So we're just going to grab the cloud color. We're going to saturate the cloud more. Right, we're just going to take it there and bring it up more. We could change that luminance and make it brighter or darker. Maybe just a little bit brighter. I'm worried that I'm going to overcook it right here, so just a little bit. Okay. Range, let's expand to all of that. So now we have more of a warm sky. The other thing that I like doing, right, we have a little bit of blues in the shadows. So when I go to split tone, right, I might want to bring that kind of blue teal into my shadow areas. And then for the highlights, right, bring back that warmth. And I can really fine tune what color I bring in. If I hold shift, I can hold that color and run up and down just there. If I hold control, I can hold my value and go left or right, but not go up or down in value. So control for left, right, shift for up, down. So just a little bit, but just kind of making that painterly feel to it, blending at 100, right? And then the midtones, see which way we go with it. Yeah. So again, before, after, right? Just make it feel like it's that sunset, right? And it also does bring out some of this afterburner right there. So, yeah, just something to play with. A lot of vibrance for something like that. But this is great. You know, it's those clouds, man, like cotton candy clouds with a fighter jet with an afterburner. Hell yeah, right? That's great. You know, I think it's really fun. I think in this case, the clouds are almost the star of the show, and this kind of gives it context. But these clouds are just doing all these magnificent things, so, you know, let it be. This is not one where I would crank the contrast, right? I don't want that, right? That looks, ugh, right? We don't want that. And so we want to have, lately I've been going for more of a painterly feel. It's kind of more of what I've been trying to edit towards. So just something to kind of think in mind. You can go different directions, but you know, you might want to play for the shadows just a little bit to bring up some detail, but yeah, that's up to you. But just showing you again how we use that color mixer. And again, I still think the crop tool is the thing that makes this photo work a little bit more than anything else. So, you know, always use a crop tool. Also from an air show, look, we have Mr. Jim. This is this is so awesome. You have a plane with some vapor clouds, and it's busting through. It's fun because it's double natured, right? It's one here, one there, and that's really cool. I love this. So yeah, it's great. You also have a dust spot right there. You might want to clean your sensor a little bit. So this again, this time of day. Let me show you my edit. Again, a little crop tool. I just turned the nose up just a little bit. So just to give it more of a little bit of a dynamic shift to it. Again, I use that point color. I was really just trying to learn that color mixer, but I shifted it way more into away from the teal this time and more into like the magenta, purpley kind of skies. What are some other things we did? Ooh. Big mask, just to give, yay JPEG, yeah, no, just to darken the area around the plane. So creating these custom vignettes, right? So if we hit a show overlay, so it's this area outside the circle that's getting this instruction, which is -2 exposure, 0.2 exposure, -57 highlights. And so this allows us to just darken this area around. But even the little waft of cloud, like right above the pilot's head, is so fun. And look at these settings. ISO 1000, 1/2000th of a second, but hit that vapor cloud. So I really cranked up the vibrance. I brought up the whites, killed the highlights, right? To make that sky just a little bit. I had a hard time with this one. I did do some color grading. I did expand the ranges here of the hue, saturation, and luminance. I really played with that just to see how much I could shift the blues. And these are being done globally. They're not being done inside of a selection tool. So yeah, any questions on that color mixer so far, the point color? I'm happy to answer questions on that because I know it's new. It's a little bit confusing still, but it really allows you to change the fit and feel of the images. So, but this is fantastic. Yeah, it's great. Very fun. Okay. These are from Kira. Again, I don't know where my edits went. Or are these my edits? Or maybe I just edited on the edits. No, she sent just the raws. These are my edits. Yay. Okay. Let me hit Y to show you the before and after. Okay. So a couple things are going on here. One, you're shooting through a reflective surface. The thing that would help would be, and maybe it was shot with this, but a polarizer. If you notice, especially right through here, what's happening is that the reflection is kind of ghosting the high shadows and detail of the couple, because you're shooting through, basically you're shooting through the sky. Essentially, you're shooting through the reflection of the sky, and so that's kind of the main problem here. And so we have to kind of work around that. So that's in our shadows, that's in our blacks, and so let's kind of take a look about what's going on. Again, I didn't have the profile for this, so I started with Camera Faithful. For Canon photos, for Canon files, I like Faithful. It's the flattest, so it gives me the most latitude to work with later. And so what we did, I created a mask just around them. I darkened that a whole bunch. So all this area around them got darkened a lot. And then I created another mask just there, and I darkened the blacks. And what that darkening the blacks does, it kind of gets rid of the sky. So if we see, as I take the blacks down, you'll see them actually come more into the exposure range that you might expect, instead of shooting through the reflection of the sky through the windshield, which is essentially what we're doing. And then I brought up my highlights just in this little area here so that I can bring out them, right? I want to be able to see them a little bit more. And then I created a linear from the top to give that a kind of a golden glow. So it's a bunch of warmth from this top line right through here, and brought up the highlights, brought up the shadows. I felt this tree got a little bit dark, so I wanted to bring that up to make them the star of the show as well. And then crank the vibrance. But again, I used this to darken this hood of the car just a little bit. So I brought luminance down as a way to darken, right, that hood of the car in a way that made it feel more saturated and more alive. And, you know, I really didn't actually change their exposure too much. I darkened everything around them, essentially, is what I did. Because if you start boosting this here, you're going to lose it because, again, we're shooting through this thick glass, and that glass is reflecting everything that it sees. A polarizer could help. Maybe it was used. I don't think so. But, Kira, if you're listening, correct me if I'm wrong. But this is hard, right? This is hard to do. For me, you know, another way is to have a light off to the side to add a little bit of light coming into there during the scene, because you are at f2 1/200, so you're within range of a flash coming in. Or you could put a flash like in the car or something, just a little bit of kiss of light just to bring them up if you want to try to do that in camera. And then this whole photo, I went very, very warm. Daylight's like 5200, and I doubled it essentially. I went to almost 10,000 Kelvin just to give it this very warm, very late afternoon feel. Okay. And then, yeah, that's pretty much what I did. But be careful shooting through reflections because you're going to get some of that ghosting. It's just very hard. Another way to do it, if you want to get real crazy, is you could wrap everything by you in black so that the windshield had nothing to reflect, right? So if all the windshield saw was the black behind you, imagine if you had like 4 queen sheets that you were shooting through, this photo would have more contrast because the windshield wouldn't have anything to reflect. It's also how you shoot artwork. If you want to shoot artwork, get a queen sheet, poke a hole, put your lens through that, and that way the frame doesn't have anything to reflect but black, and so you're going to be able to see through that frame a little bit better. Yeah, Jim, in answer to your question on that plane, I didn't try to select the plane at all, except for a radial, because all the fuzzy edges of that cloud were just, you could probably get a selection, but it would take hours to do. And so instead, I just played with the color difference of the sky versus the plane as a way to darken the sky and keep the plane's value that same luminance value. Yeah. So let's look at one more from Kara. Right, getting in close. This is the before. You can see, right, this is reflecting, right? If we look at that, it's reflecting everything around it, right? We can see the trees, we can see the venue, but this is all reflection through here of the sky, okay? So again, I warmed it up a whole bunch and darkened up that, not darkened, but I added warmth to that color right there. This one, this one I kept a little bit softer feel. I did less to this photo, less vibrance. I added dehaze. And the reason we added dehaze, that's actually what it was built for. Dehaze is localized contrast. It was made to get rid of fog or kind of ghosted photos. It's a way to kind of bring back that control. Now, it's very easy to go overboard with it, right? We don't want to go that far. We don't want to go to 100. But as a way to kind of bring back, watch if I go negative, right? Everything gets very cloudy. And so using dehaze as a way to get rid of that kind of ghosted feel is nice. So somewhere in there, and that just kind of punches them back up. I left this one just kind of feeling softer because I like the way it feels, right? It feels kind of very off the cuff, that they kind of caught a moment there. So I wanted to leave that, not make it, look like it was edited too much, but I just like this feel. But again, just warming it up a ton because it feels like this was maybe after the sun even set, and so that white balance, gets very, very. You can see these bulbs back here is a cue of what color maybe you should get to. So yeah. And then on this one, color grading, right? So I added more warmth to the midtones, added some teal greens, and just kind of gave it that vintage feel, magenta to the highlights. And so just as a way to kind of give it more of that postcard feel. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So yeah, those are some of the new tools in Lightroom. If there's questions, be sure to reach out. We link to the Lightroom. Helpx.adobe.com is always a great resource for helpx.adobe.com. I'll type that in there. They have a ton of tutorials on all different types of their Adobe products. It's also where they kind of do a breakdown of what is new, what's coming, what's in beta. They have big breakdowns on all that. And you'll start seeing more tutorials on that point color. But I think it's really exciting being able to take the luminance, hue, and saturation into a selection is really nice. I'm already a heavy user of HSL, and so being able to use that in a smaller area is really nice for me because I can target very specific things instead of the global photo. So yeah, it's really nice to have the blur tool. There'll be some uses for it. It's going to get overused. You're going to start seeing a whole lot of it, making it look like it was shot at like f.5 or just these weird, very cartoonish looking or miniature. You're going to start seeing a lot of that for the next month or so, I'm guessing. But yeah, that's what's going on. That's what's new in Lightroom. I think Lightroom 7, the cloud version, is actually starting to get. You could start making a case that, hey, maybe that's the one to start using if you were just starting out with localized storage, where you're not having to blow through your 100 gigs of cloud storage, right? Because I would go through that in about a week. And so, being able to use the local version, and that way you can edit on your desktop, your laptop, your phone, your tablet, kind of wherever you wanted to. I think that's where the future is, where you're not tied to any one computer, where you can edit anywhere and you have all the same files and you sync only what you want to sync. I get that. I get where they're going with it. There's times I want to take my laptop and edit photos that are on my desktop, but then I have to sync the galleries. I have to really prepare for it. And so, I see where they're going. I think it's like 80 or 90% there, but probably in the next year or two, Lightroom 7 is probably going to be the only one. It might be on par in features. We'll see. I don't think it's there quite yet, but it's getting closer. Every release, it's getting closer. Yeah. Can target that Milky Way core. Ooh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you can really change the HSL so you don't lose all the magentas and reds and the galactic core that we tend to lose when we adjust for the whole sky. Yeah, that's a good point. Having that spot color changes, I really need to find like all the different types of ways I want to use it, because I know I'll be using it a lot. That's the feature I'll use the most. I'll use that 100x more than the blur tool. So yeah. All right. Well, if there's any questions, you can y'all should know how to reach out to me. Thanks for everybody submitting photos. I appreciate it. This was a really fun set. We had air shows, we had portraits, we had Grand Tetons, we had all kind of fun stuff. So thanks for submitting, as always. Thanks to all of our patrons for supporting us in this channel and what we do. We try to have fun, so I really enjoy it. This is episode 35. Look at us, just rocking our way on the way to 50. That's been a lot of me talking about a lot of photos and a lot of Lightroom. I think we started with like Lightroom 10, and we're already all the way to Lightroom 13 now. So a lot of changes, a lot of years of doing this. Tell your friends. It's a fun thing. So anyway, guys, y'all have a great night. If you have any more Lightroom questions, just text me or email me. All right, see y'all.
The green light.
Y'all can go.